Hello Flight Simmers, it is Pilot 83 here. We're going to do a tutorial today in the Vulcan, the Avro Vulcan by Just Flight. This is going to be a two-part tutorial on working the autopilot and navigation of the Vulcan. In this video, we will not cover the VOR or TACAN. I will do that in my second video. I will do this first video for those who are more beginner and who are just wanting to use the GPS and things like that. But we're going to go over it. We'll go over some of the instruments and things. So let's go ahead and get right to it. All right, everybody. So let's go ahead and get to it. We'll go over some of the controls and instruments inside the Vulcan before we get started. So right here is our autopilot control panel. This is where we engage our autopilot. We will be going over that. Down here, kind of hidden, we have our autopilot pitch and autopilot roll controls. This is if we were in autopilot and we want to manually control those things. Right here, this is our flight director controls, alright? So these are our tools for our vertical or lateral. Right here we have the compass button. This just controls which side of the plane the flight directors use for the compass. Alright, up top here we have BOM. BOM is basically your heading mode, as it says. Nav selector, GPS, so that's how you follow your GPS flight plan. So if you made a flight plan, say in the world map, which is what we're going to do today. Alright, so the middle here, it doesn't say what it is, but this setting can be used as a nav mode to track TACANs when the track knob is pulled on the autopilot controller. That track knob is right here. Also associated with GPS as well, or heading. You got to pull that up to engage it. Localizer, the setting can be used as a nav mode to track VORs when the track knob is pulled up, so same thing. The setting can also be used to track the localizer if active frequency is inputted to the nav1 radio, which is done down here, but to key that in and get it to where you want it, you actually got to go to the radios, which are right here. So this is where we get those nav radio frequencies. So we can control those numbers from right here, as you see there, just like that, and that's how we could follow that nav path. So the GP is similar to the localizer mode, but with addition to be able to follow the glide slope. All right, so this would be for like a ILS landing. It's when you would have it in GP. It feeds that information into the flight director, or I should say the autopilot. The flight director feeds that into the autopilot. Put that back in the center. Then down here we have our vertical controls. So we have Mach. So what Mach does is, it's a little weird because we have something very similar to this already in the plane, but it basically maintains the speed of the aircraft that you're at when you engage it by either changing the pitch up or down. So it will do whatever it has to maintain that speed by raising the nose or lowering the nose. Height is basically like altitude hold, basically, but we also have altitude hold down here, which we will go over. That works a whole lot better than that one. So a little weird to me. So when you're right here in the middle, which is where it is at default, that's how we can engage the manual pitch and roll control down here. So if we were down here and we just have our autopilot engaged, so we do that to engage the autopilot before we do anything. So if that was engaged and we're in that center, that's how we can manually control the pitch or roll of the aircraft. The approach is for your ILS and glide slope, where it will pitch itself down and try to follow that glide path. It will not auto land, so you'll have to choose your minimums, but that's what that's for. Datum, do not believe works. It does not go down for me, and I don't see anything in the manual about it working, so I'm going to assume that does not work. Alright, moving on. We have our Omni bearing selector. I'm sorry, I am wrong. We have our TACAN indicator right here, which we'll go over that more in the second video. We're not going to really touch that here because we're not going over this today, but I will show you how you use that to follow your TACAN. Alright, so right here in front of us, we have our attitude indicator and we have our HSI. So these two yellow lines are your flight director. Okay. Down here, this is showing you your bank angle, and this long white line is your artificial horizon, and then this white dot here is your pitch. Okay. So when flight director is controlling the plane with the autopilot, these flight directors will move, and where they're moving is where the plane is going to follow. The plane is going to follow those yellow lines, those flight directors. Okay, and y'all will see that in action. Now, something can be a little complicated. I said we'll touch more on it in the second video. Is our HSI right here? Okay. So the way this is pointing with this round thing, that is the direction your plane is facing. We are facing east. So if we look at our VFR map here, I'll show you. The aircraft is facing currently east. Our heading bug is right here. But here's the thing. The heading bug might not necessarily follow the position that the aircraft is oriented. So this could be a little complex to figure out. I'm still kind of going over that, trying to figure that out myself a little bit. But it does not seem to necessarily follow where the aircraft is oriented or true north. Because you can push this in and you can spin this whole entire compass. So this thing basically works as your omni bearing selector. We're not going to go over that in this video. I don't want it to be too much to take in. I said this is part 1. This is for the beginners. Part 2, we'll go over that a lot more and what all that does. Alright, so coming down here. So this is our autopilot power here. Okay, so you got to pull it up to engage it. It takes about 20 seconds for that to turn white. Now, keep in mind that if you break the autopilot by manually controlling the plane, or you do something else that makes the autopilot fail, to reset the autopilot, you must come over here. On the co-pilot side, you'll see this thing that says autopilot. You got to pull it down, and that resets the autopilot. So that is a little interesting. But when this is white, that's how you know you have power to the autopilot. To turn the autopilot on, we're going to hit engage. I'm going to pull that up. The autopilot is then engaged. Ball mode does not work. This button here, you can go down or up, and it can come up as well. It can be pulled up. So when you pull this up and say it's in altitude, that is altitude hold mode. If you go to indicated airspeed mode and pull up, this is kind of like your vertical climb in a sense. So whenever you engage this, whatever speed you're currently at, the plane will hold that Mach. But if you give the plane, say, more throttle, the plane is going to pitch that nose up and climb, but still try to maintain that certain speed that you set this to at the time you engaged it. So say you were doing 500 knots and you give it more throttle, it's going to pitch the nose up and climb to help keep it at 500 knots and try to maintain that. Or if you pull the throttle back in that same sense, it's going to drop the nose to keep that speed as well. So that's basically how you can manually climb or descend in this plane. Also, alongside of using the pitch control down here. And like I said, for that to work, that's your manual control. You would just have engage pulled up like that. That's how you get all these things to work. This has to be in the center, as it is right there. Oh, I'm sorry, this one here has to be in the center like it is right there, and that's how we would do that. Okay? Track is how you engage what you're doing on our flight director panel up here. So if I want to track a heading, whatever I set my heading to up here, I would then pull this up and we can now start tracking a heading. Or if I was in GPS, that's how we pull track up. Now we're following that. Same thing with the other two. It engages that mode. Same thing if we were doing TACAN. Like I said, I'll show you all that in the next video. So I have a flight plan put into the plane right now. So in this video here, I'm just going to show you the heading and the GPS following if you got a flight plan from the world map. In part 2, we will go over TACAN, tracking, and VOR with our nav radio. So let's go ahead and get ourselves in the air, and I will show you these autopilot options, okay? Alright guys, we're in the air, so let's go ahead and put some of this into action. So we're going to move this to GPS, and that's if you've made a flight plan in the world map. We're going to come down here, we're going to engage autopilot, then hit track. You'll now see us turning. We are now going to intercept that glide path. We're going to go ahead and pull this down, then up to hold our altitude. We're now headed to intercept the magenta line. There we go. Now keep in mind, you can also do altitude hold, which is a little weird to me, by switching this to height. You'll see that orange flag pop up there. And it's going to engage the altitude that we were at when we engaged or selected it. Okay, we can get back out of that real fast. I want to show you. We can... Like, you gotta put that in the middle. We can go to indicated airspeed mode, pull it up, and that's going to maintain the speed that we are at and hold it. But when you give it more throttle to be able to maintain that speed, it's going to raise the nose to climb or lower the nose to descend while trying to maintain that speed. It's not perfect, but you're basically using your throttles to climb or descend. So you see the speed we're at now. So now it's going to start raising the nose, as you see right here on our attitude indicator. It's going to go up and down a little bit as it tries to maintain it, and it's going to put us in a climb. But it's going to try to hold that. After a few seconds, it'll climb, it'll go back up, okay? And if we lower the speed, it's going to drop our nose down. And then it will start picking back up speed and try to maintain that. Like I said, it's not perfect. It's old school. And once it starts getting a little bit faster than that speed, it will raise the nose up again. We'll let her drop down for a minute here. Okay, let's go back into height mode. It's going to level us back off. It's going to hold our altitude. You see we're following the flight plan beautifully there. Now I will tell you that this altitude hold down here on the autopilot panel is better than one up here. Like I said, we put it in Mach mode. That's going to hold the speed that we're at, and it's going to manually raise or drop the nose to maintain that speed on its own, instead of us giving it more throttle to raise or lower that nose. Put it back at center. That's where we can manually control our pitch and roll. So say we come down here and we start moving it to the left here. I believe we have to disengage track. Yes. You got to disengage track. You'll now see that the plane is starting to manually roll by turning this knob. Put altitude hold on this here. We're getting a little low. And we can change our pitch manually by holding this up or down. We pull down to climb. It's a little finicky. Then we got to disengage this. Come on, baby. Let me get all this roll. I think she'll do a lot better. There we go. I find you gotta pull it down and wait a second. Alright, there we go. Now we're starting to climb. That's manually doing it. So it's not the most accurate, but it works. Alright. I'm going to go back into altitude hold mode. Now we're going to move into heading. So heading's there. Remember, our heading bug's right here on this. Once we're up there in heading, we're going to pull this up. And now it's going to start following our heading. So my rule of thumb is wherever this is pointing, because that's direction we are going. So if we want to go right, we need to be on the right side of this line, and that's going to turn us right. If I go back to the left side of this circle here, we're going to start going back left. But sometimes that's not always the case in this plane, I've noticed. It's a little mind-boggling, but that's how it works. But just remember, the direction that this is pointing is the way you're going. And keep your heading bug on that direction so you can see us. So we're going that way, I'm on the right side. So this here would be 45, I'm sorry, this would be 90-degree turn. So we're going that way, this would be 90 degrees left. And there you go, guys. That's basically how you work that. So, in my part 2 video, we will cover VOR and TACAN tracking. It'll be a more of a in-depth video, because there's a lot more to that than this. But I hope this video is helpful for those who are new to flying and just getting into this plane, and that this can help you navigate this plane around. Till next time, guys, much love to all of y'all. See you guys on my next video. Happy flying out there. Peace.